Today, you're going to learn 6 steps to inner freedom. I'm Briana Borten, and I help people awaken to their highest selves. For support in creating your sacred life, reaching your potential, and expanding your consciousness, subscribe to my channel and hit that bell to get alerted when I post a new video every Monday. In my community for spiritual growth I lead, the Love Rising Collective, freedom is one of the main things we navigate toward again and again, so we can all become more free. It's amazing to see the ways our lives change and our personal worlds change when we experience inner freedom. So here are the 6 things that really help us move toward that freedom. The first thing is to work to release the grip of your ego identities. So that starts with becoming aware of your ego identities and how much you cling to them. So we often cling to ego identities of good person. That's like a really big one for so many of us. Or we cling to ego identities of strong or fast or smart, or even ego identities of mother or boss or leader. And a lot of these have served us a lot in our life. So starting to release the grip of them can be really hard and really tricky. But first, just noticing what ego identities you have. One way to do this is just to complete the sentence, I am. And then whatever you put into that space is likely an ego identity to some degree. So even though I know that if you're a mother, you're like, but I just am a mother. So there's one way of that we just might technically be parents. And there's another thing to identify as that. That means you move through your life, you move through the world with that running the show. And I know so many parents that do this. And to think about releasing the grip of that can feel really hard. So I just want to encourage you to do this work to release these ego identities and be really gentle with yourself while you do it. And if you would love me to make a video about how to do more of this work, let me know in the comments below, because we could go into it for days and days, and I would really love to help you do that. One of the things that we can do when we want to start to release ego identities after becoming aware of them is to start to see if we could have or not have whatever that ego identity is. So let's start by talking about the ego identity of being like a good person. And if we have that identity, then no matter what happens in the world, we don't want anyone to push up against that. So if somebody says that something that you've done is like hurtful or wrong to them, you might get really defensive, because you're not just defending the actions, you're defending the identity that's getting poked when somebody says that. So I really encourage you to see if you can have both sides of any identity. Like, can you be good and not good? Can you have both? Once you're willing to have both, something else comes through. If you're like, I can be good and I can be bad, and I can be not bad, and I can be not good, and I can have all of the elements of it all equally, and it's all okay. And what happens then is it starts to just loosen up a little bit, and then we're able to shine our authentic self through. Number 2 is to be with that deep, empty, uncomfortable place that's in all of us, that great void that's within us that can be really uncomfortable and really challenging to be in. See if you can learn to be with that discomfort rather than filling it with addictions. When we fill that empty void with addictions, from alcohol to food to sex, whatever it is that we're trying to fill that void with, we really hinder our freedom, because freedom is actually in being able to be with that place, not with avoiding it. And sometimes this really means taking the time to regulate our own nervous systems, to learn how to de-escalate ourselves, to do practices that help us nourish our nervous systems, to be able to stay in the place of our nervous systems feeling dysregulated so that we can learn them and start to bring them back into order without having to shut them down with with food, sex, booze, drugs, whatever it is. One really great way to help regulate our nervous system is to connect to the earth, to connect to nature. It has so much to teach us and also is an amazing source of chill. So relying on the earth and leaning into it will really help with this regulation of the nervous system that'll help us stay in the discomfort in a way that's sustainable. Next is to release control. We love controlling. We love controlling ourselves. We love controlling circumstances. We love controlling other people. And yet the notion of control is actually something that we make up in our minds, kind of to make ourselves feel better on a day-to-day basis. But when we stop trying to control the world and everyone in it, we become more free. We no longer have to manipulate the way somebody else sees us, or change the way the situation is going, or make ourselves be any different. When we stop trying to control everything, we end up with a lot more energy to flow through us and a lot more freedom. And the interesting thing is that once we do that, we come to a place where we're actually able to create change in the world. Rather than trying to control it and it into place, we get to experience the ability to hold all of our energy here, feel really free, and actually be more effective in creating the change we want to see in the world. So I have a question for you. What is the hardest thing for you to release control of? Is it your partner? Is it your work? Is it your children? Is it yourself? Is it the way people perceive you? What is the hardest thing for you to release control of? I would love to hear about it in the comments below, because even just identifying it is a really big step to starting to shift that dynamic. So number 4 is to let go of comparison and competition. When we are comparing ourselves, I'm better than, I'm worse than, I'm better than, I'm worse than everyone else around us, or when we feel competitive against somebody who maybe doesn't even know us, we start to really lose our freedom, because we are then determining how we're gonna act, what we're gonna do, how we're gonna be, not from our soul, but from a place of trying to one up or get ahead or be better than or be less than somebody else, which is definitely a place of trapping ourselves into a certain way of being that is likely not really coming from a deeper place in ourselves. So it helps to look at our relationship with sufficiency, like that there is enough even when it doesn't feel like it, and learning to really play with that idea so that we aren't in this game of comparison and competition, which is basically rooted in the idea that there just isn't enough for everyone. So there's that underlying place that helps us to look at so that we can release ourselves from the comparison and competition and become much more free. Number 5 is to tap into your deep knowing and self-worth to become sovereign. So really doing the work to excavate and change things within yourself so that you can really see your true self-worth and tap into that place where you really know the truth, right? Not think the truth, not I think I know all the things, but really there's this deep knowing in me of what is true here. And in that way, you can release so much of the outside world. You start to hear your own voice and start to really believe in your own truth. And this isn't like a matter of my truth is better than everyone else's truth. This is a matter of being like, this is the deepest felt truth that I can experience, and I'm going to live from that place. And I'm going to keep digging deeper, right? It's not like we get to a place and then it's like done. There's deeper layers of understanding and knowing to be had all the time. And when we stay in that inquiry consistently, then a lot of what is trying to control us in the outside world, or that we're just allowing ourselves to be controlled by, disappears. And then we become more free because we're just really obeying ourselves, right? And when we just truly obey that deepest level of ourselves, that is really freedom. And number 6 is having trust and faith that you'll make the best out of it. and you'll choose the most empowering path forward no matter what happens. What we do a lot of the time is that we project into the future what might possibly happen, and then we control our actions and limit our way of seeing things based on imaginary external circumstances that may possibly happen. So because of that, and because we have great imaginations, we often think of the worst possible case scenario, and then we hinder ourselves and hold ourselves back from actually expressing the truest place in our being. But when we start to cultivate faith and trust in ourselves, that no matter what happens, I'll make the best out of it. That doesn't mean that everything that happen will be wonderful, but I have faith and trust that I'll make the best out of it, and that I'm going to consistently choose the most empowering path forward. And the way to start to build this faith and trust in yourself is to start doing it now, so you have something to reference again and again. What's happening right now that you can make the best out of, that you can choose the most empowering path forward right now? What is happening? And then later, this is going to serve you so that you can be like, oh yeah, I did that. I know how to do this. Oh yeah, I did that. And then you'll be able to look into the future and be like, no matter what happens, this is what I'll do. So I'm going to do the thing that expresses myself most fully, because that feels the most free. And I just so wish for you all the most expressed freedom possible. I created a meditation and journal prompts to help you do just this. It's called the Inner Compass, and it's linked in the description below. And one more really important thing about creating freedom is to really cultivate an open heart. Doing the work to keep your heart open, or to maybe open it in the first place, and then not closing for anything. We often close reflexively from being hurt or even imagining getting hurt. We'll close our heart to protect ourselves. But when we do that, we often trap hurt emotions inside of ourselves, and we don't actually miss the hurt at all. And so learning that we can keep our heart open regardless of what's happening on the outside, and not close it for anything. And that to me feels like the pinnacle of freedom. Can I keep my heart open even when it's breaking? Can I keep my heart open even when I'm hurt? Can I keep my heart open even when things aren't going the way I wish they would go? So this is a really useful thing to cultivate in ourselves so that we can move with freedom, with peace, and with love. And when we do this work to find our own personal liberation and freedom, a couple things happen that greatly benefit the world. One, you become a model of inner freedom and help awaken others to their own liberation. And two, you start to recognize that we cannot be truly free until everyone is free. And you start to want to create internal and external freedom for everyone. If you liked this video, hit that like button and be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends. And check out my other videos to create more peace and freedom in your life, like this video on energy work healing, how to get back your energy and create vibrancy in your life, and this video on taking your seat in the web of the universe. I am sending you so much love.